Florida State fans want to see more explosive plays on offense, want to see more efficiency. Check out our video with Logan Robinson on quarterbacks, running backs, and wide receivers. But the guys that make it all happen are along that offensive front. Got Logan back to break it down for us. Logan, how you doing?
Doing great, Mark. Thanks for having me again. Creeping in a little bit closer to fall camp. Counting down the days. Literally August 7th is the first day fall camp will begin. So like you said, Mark, it all begins for the offensive line. Florida State's play up there hasn't been too fantastic the last couple of years, as we know.
So we got Dylan Gibbons coming in from Notre Dame. He's going to play guard, but pretty much all starts with Devontae Love-Taylor, right, as the best guy up front?
Yep, he transferred from FIU, played last year. Was kind of dinged up a couple times last year, and actually wasn't able to see him near the end. And actually, we're going to fully see him healthy, I believe, at the start of full camp, which is great news, and FSU fans will be celebrating that. But he's by far your most talented guy I think you'll have on the offensive line. And, you have Gibbons, too, coming in from Notre Dame, who I think has the best experience. He's played in big-time games. He's played in college football playoff games. He just is a veteran coming in. It's another guy that Mike Norvell wanted to bring in his locker room too and have that kind of attitude of a winner, coming from Notre Dame, which has had a successful program the last couple of years and has had consistency. That offensive line is something that has helped them make it to those big time games. So Dylan Gibbons and also Devontae Love-Taylor, I think, are some highlighted guys that are joining, that are playing this upcoming season.
Darius Washington's also a guy that has experience at left tackle, was actually the guy coming out of camp this time last year at left tackle. He got nicked up a little bit. I got to think more so than any other position on the field, either offense or defense, that this is a collection of just guys that they need to sort through and see who really can play and where they can play, because unlike any other position, it's not just about getting the guys, it's about who works well together with whom in what spots.
Absolutely. It's going to be, that's why it's hard to really do a full on position by position preview, most certainly in the offensive line, because I think this is going to kind of be blown up everywhere. I think if I were to make a prediction now, once we see the first couple of weeks of fall camp, I'm going to be completely wrong. It all depends on what Coach Atkins wants to do. He's got projects that still are, a Dante Lucas who, there was a lot of conversation. Is he going to be sticking with Florida State? Is there some kind of attitude problems or something like that? Seems like he's dialed in now, and we'll see how that works for him. We'll see if he'll even be a starter against Notre Dame. You've got a guy like Maurice Smith, who was absolutely a shocker, I think, with how well he played last year. Another full year, full spring under Coach Atkins, I think, is going to be huge for him. He was a great, like I said, a nice surprise to FSU fans on how well he played last year. And then you've also got Bavion Johnson, who feels like he's been at FSU for 16 years, but he's going to come in as a veteran guy. And there's actually a lot of the staff has been very optimistic about him and his play so far after the spring. And they think that he's in great shape and has turned into kind of a leader on that offensive line too. So there's a lot to be optimistic about. There was growth last season, as we know. I know Jason is on here with us on the show weekly, and he's giving me a hard time, but I need him to understand the stats. And there were some things that I think, too, the quarterback play might have put the offensive line, made them look worse than what they really were. There was a lot to like of the progression that happened last year, and give a year number 2 for Coach Atkins, who I think is, we'll see how long Coach Atkins stays at FSU. He's doing a great job recruiting right now, and he's by far has really great experience coaching. This offensive line, has a lot of different projects in here. You've got young guys like Zane Herring, Thomas Schrader. You still got a senior in Brady Scott too. There's just a lot. There's a lot to work with here, and Coach Atkins has a big job ahead the next couple of months.
Yeah, I would say that Coach Atkins is going to be rolling up his sleeves in August, but I think they're already rolled up from spring ball. And he's just kept them rolled up because he's got a lot of work to do sorting through these guys up front, because, again, they make it all work. And it's the most combinations that you have to deal with at any position. It's not even close in terms of the chemistry and who works well together. And you might have, your fifth best guy may not work in because he's only got one position that he can really play in. And it's just it's you got to work with different combinations and figure out what is going to work.
Yep. There's a lot that I think when we get into camp here in a few weeks, we're going to kind of, maybe there might be some guys that shock us, maybe some youngins that come in there too. That might shock a few of us, which I'm all for. I think, you've got Coach Storms that's doing a phenomenal job, the strength and conditioning coach. He's doing a great job on trimming some of these guys and also adding on some meat and filling them out some and putting some weight on them, some good weight, putting some muscle up there in trenches. So interested to see how these guys arrive in fall camp. And really, I want to see what Coach Atkins is going to roll out. I'm interested if he's going to have different kind of combinations and they're going to try that out for the first week or two. There's just a lot of question marks, but there's a lot of positives, if that makes any sense.
Rod Orr, Brian Estes, a couple of those youngins that you're referring to that could make a splash right away. There's certainly going to be the opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
Got Logan Robinson on the line from Knoll Game Day. Check out him and the rest of the crew breaking down Florida State like nobody else. Knoll Game Day, get on over there, check it out. And of course, our Florida State live show every Wednesday night, 6 p.m. Eastern with Logan, Jason, and myself. All right. Let's break down the Florida State defense. Gave up 456 yards per game last year. Not Florida State standards. Not enough plays behind the line of scrimmage, disruptive plays, pass breakups, batted balls, tackles for loss, what we're used to seeing out of a Knowles defense. And even with all that, 5 guys move on to the NFL. So there was some talent on that defense. But let's start up front, because before we get to the linebackers, because I think that's probably the best spot on the field, Jermaine Johnson, obviously coming in from Georgia, Kiera Thomas from South Carolina, they're going to be counted upon to bolster this unit, make it so much better than it was last year.
Yeah, now the thing going into this season, Mike Norvell really focused on bringing in transfers and transfers with some experience. And, you got 2 SEC guys coming in, but your highlighted one right now is going to be Jermaine Johnson. He's on the cover of the media guy that just got released today. And, this guy is he's got one goal in mind, and that's to play very well where he can get drafted early on in this NFL draft. He comes in Tallahassee, had a very solid season last year, and comes down to a defense that's kind of hungry. Want to make up for what happened last year, want to make up for not having a spring. I think there's a lot of question marks all around in every unit we'll talk about, but primarily in linebacker, there was a lot of things that I think definitely young guys, which we'll also talk about, that missed out on, a full-on spring too, that really hurt them. It was tough for a lot of these younger linebackers to come in and, understand film, go through the segments of what college football is all about whenever you get into workouts, and you also start watching film with your coaches and going through your drills. But, Jermaine Johnson is that highlighted guy along with Kiera Thomas. We didn't get to see Thomas during the spring, but, he's going to play a lot, and I think there's even guys behind, Kiera Thomas that have been around at Florida State that are going to play a lot. And I thought there was some highlighted guys like Quashawn Fuller and also Derek McLendon that I thought really impressed me during the spring.
Moving on to the linebacker position, as I noted, Amari Gaynor, Emmett Rice, you're talking about guys that made plays. Obviously, any defense funnels most of the traffic to the linebackers, so they're going to rack up most of the tackles. But still, Steven Dix had a decent year with 44 tackles. Emmett Rice was 61, 7.5 tackles for loss. Amari Gaynor, who seems to impress anybody who comes through town that sees Florida State for the first time, they're like, okay, who is that guy? 65 tackles, 5 tackles for loss. So these are going to be the guys that are going to hold it down.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, Gaynor is definitely a household name here, definitely in Tallahassee, played here in Charles, and the fans love him. He's represented Florida State very well, but he's also played solid. I'm not a big fan of where Coach Adam Fuller was putting him last year, and I can understand you don't have a spring, and I think this is what hit Florida State's defense the hardest, is not understanding, not knowing where to put your talent at, and it kind of confused me on a few things where Amari Gaynor was being placed at, but he's got to be utilized a lot more in this defense. I believe Coach Marv talked about it in a recent offseason interview, saying Gaynor's got to be used more. Just got to figure out where to put him, and I got to hope that answer is done, because that's a kind of guy. Whenever you go into a game plan, that changes every week because he's more of a hybrid dude. He's able to go east, west, north, and south extremely fast. So I'd like to see him use a lot on blitz packages. And, there's a lot of other younger talent around him, too, that is going to excel after a year one. You look at not Emmett Rice, but you look at DJ Lundy. You also look at Steven Dix Jr. as two cats that I think will have a big progression this upcoming year. I'm so glad that Marv and Fuller and Norvell were allowing a lot of play for them last year, because you got to see their mistakes. They were able to look at film, because there was a lot of wrong angles being made, bad reads, but that's what you expect from true freshmen coming in. So I'm glad they got to play a lot, and they look like they're in great shape. Two strong guys with Lundy and Dix. And I know you mentioned Emmett Rice. That's your leader. That's your veteran guy. He ended off the season very well. He's a great run thumper. And I thought he looked great. It seemed like there might have been an injury to him before early in the spring, but seems like he's going to we'll see, potentially be close to a full go once fall camp begins. And Emmett Rice is a dude that, once again, feels like has been at Florida State for 86 years, but it's nice to have a veteran there. And, there was some thoughts of maybe if he was looking to go pro or look at other places, move on, not necessarily transfer from Florida State, but there was some talk maybe he could enter that NFL draft, but he's going to end up staying at Florida State and get another year in. So linebacker room's that's got some potential.
Folks, we got Logan Robinson on the line from Knoll Game Day. Does it get any better? Breaking down Florida State defense that's got to get better. That's got to get better in 2021, and Logan's counting on it. And I think one of the big reasons why is when you bring in, I don't want to oversell these guys as like superstars, but they were all productive players. We already went over Jermaine Johnson, Keir Thomas playing at a high level in a high league, best league in America, Georgia, South Carolina, Jamie Robinson, also from South Carolina, 74 tackles in a short season last year. He would have racked up 100 tackles in a full 13 games of the bowl game last year. So Jarquez McClellan didn't play last year, 2019 with Arkansas, 34 stops in the SEC. So 4 SEC boys coming in to bolster the defense and 2 in the defensive backfield.
Yep, you'll take it. That most certainly Jamie Robinson at the first spring scrimmage that was allowed to the public, which we were in attendance for. We were able to see Jamie Robinson. He ended up being a starter, which is impressed me. We know he had experience, definitely, like you were saying, that SEC level over there in South Carolina, but he ended up getting that playbook down, and he played as a starter and just looked like it was natural to him, which is a great sign, getting that playbook down. We know he's got the attributes, like you were saying, a great tackler. You team that up with a guy like at the linebacker position with Amari Gaynor. You've got to memorize there, but definitely in the DB room, because you lose Hampson Nasruddin. Didn't get to see him a lot last season, but he was a tackling monster. And that's exactly why he's going to do so well with the Jets and the NFL. Jamie Robinson is going to look to kind of take a little bit of that role, I think, going east and west quick, fast, and making tackles. And I thought he was a natural fit. I'm excited to also watch him in red zone, at least for the first 2 scrimmages that we were able to see. He made some crazy, great plays, had an interception in the end zone. I believe picked off Mackenzie Milton. He's a guy that is smarts up here more than anything. He's extremely athletic, great build on him. And I know the FSU staff is really excited about him. And also McLendon, we'll see if he gets some PT this upcoming year. That DB room is absolutely loaded. I know we'll talk about it, but there's a lot of guys in there. This DB room, I think, really struggled the most out of the defense. This unit primarily without a spring. I feel like Adam Fuller, maybe Coach Woodson didn't necessarily know who to put where. You obviously had Asante Samuel Jr. last year. He's going to do phenomenal with the Chargers, but you don't know who your 2 starting DBs are going to be this upcoming year, and it's going to be a question mark. It's going to be a good competition, and when you think about Florida State, you think about defensive backs, and there's nothing better than a fall camp and those guys competing with the wide receiver unit too.
Hit the like button, folks. Share these videos out on social media. So we've had Logan stop by to break down the quarterbacks, running backs, wide receivers, and offensive line. Now we're looking at the defense. We chop it up every Wednesday night at 6 Eastern. It's a good time. It's some serious football talk, but it's a good time as well for at least an hour talking up Florida State. And, of course, as you see on the banner right there, check out Logan's work at NoleGameDay.com. So when we do look at the defensive backfield, is there anybody we've missed? Anybody else that you think might step in and do something? Anybody from this current 21 recruiting class?
Well, one guy I'm going to go to maybe just primarily a couple guys here. It's just loaded as usual. And whenever there's an FSU defensive backfield room, it's going to be loaded. So one thing I want to mention that a guy that looked really nice in the spring, who might have kind of gotten forgotten about, is Brandon Moore, the UCF transfer, who best friends with Mackenzie Milton, played well at UCF, very well at UCF, dealt with an injury. He's now over here at Florida State. He looked solid during the spring. I'm interested to see how he looks during this fall camp, if he raises some eyebrows and, going into the first couple of weeks of football season, how many reps he's going to get inside the games. But I'm primarily, we just got to see how he plays during the fall camp. I thought he did very well. He stayed on his guy for a majority of the time that we were watching and made some plays, had an interception against Jordan Travis in the first scrimmage that we were at. Interested to see how he does. Keep an eye on him. Another guy, we got to see how Travis J does this upcoming year. That is a cat that is like a Greg Reedish to me a little bit. And we, Florida State fans, and G5 was probably one of my most favorite players ever. This guy can do everything. He's going to play punt return. He might go back there at kick return a few times this season. But, as a DB, he's a guy that can tackle. He's nasty. He's physical. And look for him to have a big season too, and see how development is for him, making his reads, going at the right angles, having better coverage. That's a guy that needs to have some progress. And then, like I said, you got to find who your two starters are at corner. Who are they going to be? Is it going to be Jarian Jones, who ended up being opposite of Asante Samuel Jr. at the beginning of the season? Didn't seem to work out too well for him. We know that he was dealing with a hand injury for majority of the season, so they were rotating players in and out. Miko Dotson, who I think has a chance at being a starter week 1 against Notre Dame, has a chance to. Played extremely well at FAU, led the country in interceptions. I thought he looked good during his couple times he got to play during the season last year. Just was still dealing with injury. Didn't get to see him a lot. Didn't actually get to see him at the spring either. But I think he has some unique talent to him, and he just knows how to find the ball. And Florida State wants to have takeaways. They got to have takeaways this upcoming year, because it's kind of been where they put themselves in the position to make them, just not coming down with the ball. I'm trying to think, Brendan Gant, we're all going to watch him because he's a physical guy. He likes to hit. He's, as a youngin', he's made a few mistakes here and there, but this is veteran time for him. There's a lot of excitement for him and his physical nature that he's going to bring, and he can cause a lot of takeaways. He comes at you full force, full speed, a little bit faster than Travis J. He comes down and he's nasty with it. He plays like a linebacker, but he's a small DB. There's a lot of excitement, I would say, around this position group. Just got to figure out, where do you put those Ferraris and those Lamborghinis? Where do you put them Porsches at? Where do you put them at? And that's going to be the big question marks for Coach Woodson and Adam Fuller this upcoming fall camp.
Yeah, Brandon Moore, before he had issues with injuries the last 2 years, they kept him off the field except for a couple games, turned in a couple of productive years in 2017 and 18 there at UCF, 31 tackles, 43 tackles the next year, 12 games played both seasons. So he's got 26 games under his belt in his career at a pretty high level competition. Got Hunter Washington, you got Omarion Cooper, the two highest rated defensive backs coming in that 21 class. They'll be in the mix. They'll be on the field. We'll see if they can break through right away, or if they're more on the developmental side.
Mm-hmm.
Logan Robinson on the line. Nole Game Day, breaking down Florida State football again Wednesday night, 6 Eastern. Join us live for Florida State Seminoles Live. Special teams. The one thing that you got to be happy about coming off a disappointing 2020 would be this team blocked 5 kicks. That was second in the nation.
Yeah, No, it was nice. That was probably one of the most exciting parts of the season, and all FSU fans, at least in Doak, would agree with that. They were kind of shocked. What is happening right now? Mike Norvell really is a mastermind at being one of the best special teams coaches in the country. That's the number one thing whenever you come in as a player. You're going to play special teams no matter if you're a starter or wherever you're at. You know that Mike Norvell's message on his special teams is huge, and he preaches on it, and it works out on the field a lot too.
All right. Anything else there with the kicking situation?
Nothing too phenomenal. You're bringing back Ryan Fitzgerald. You also have Grothos there at kicker. It seems like they'll have another battle this fall camp. We'll see how that works. Just a lot of inconsistency between both of them. You got to see some progression there this upcoming year. But you got to get the recruiting in order, I think, to fix it. But there's some inconsistencies between both of them. And you've also got the Australian Monstramoni. He'll be punting this upcoming year. Has a great leg. Actually had some great punts last season. Interested to see him in his year 2, full year ahead for him. And, looking at some of the fun parts of special teams, you look at kick return, which I think Corey Wren is going to be utilized a lot. Talk about a track star, speedy guy. Didn't get to see him last year due to injury. He's a full go. He will be a starter against Notre Dame on kick return. You got to find him a little bit of a hole. You kind of have flashbacks of Kermit Whitfield. We'll see how he plays this year, but you'd love to have flashbacks of Kermit Whitfield, of how great he was, able to have some separation, just speed down the field, down the sideline. Something Whitfield was great at. This is something that Norvell is going to want to use Corey Wren for, and also maybe Travis Jay at punt return. I think wouldn't be shocking if we see him starting at punt return. And then we'll see who's on the other side at kick return. Could it be Keyshawn Helton, if he's fully back, fully ready to go, fully healthy? Little inconsistencies last year at wide receiver, but still a speedy guy. I'd be interested to see a few more other players there, honestly, on the opposite side of Corey Wren. And we'll just see how fall camp goes. But I think there's some Norvell's always going to try to be better than his opponent on special teams and make plays to try to change the momentum in a game. So we'll see how that special teams unit works.
We're only days away from fall camp. You're all caught up, all set on the Florida State defense. Thanks to Logan Robinson, Noel Game Day. Check him out and the rest of the crew over there on NG. Logan, we always appreciate these breakdowns. Always a good time.
Thank you, Mark. I appreciate it.
All right, good stuff.
Perfect. That was good.